Hi everyone, I'm Jelita, the sales trainee of Virtus Technology Indonesia. Thank you for the opportunity that right now I'm going to explain the basic information of server. But before we talk about the server, let's get back a little about IT infrastructure. So information technology or IT infrastructure has three elements. The first one is compute, the second one is network, and the third one is storage. We are going to only talk about the compute, the basic information of the compute parts, or well known as computer. Computer has two components, hardware and software. The hardware is the physical one, like monitor, keyboard, mouse, and CPU. And the software is operating system. Those are two softwares, operating system and application. And the operating system that we already know, operating system is like the soul of the hardware. The hardware won't be operated if there is no an operating system or OS. Those are some classifications about the computer. Right now I'm going to explain you about the computer classification by its functions. The first one, there is embedded computer. Embedded computer, the example is like the hardware is iPod. The device is iPod, and the software or the operating system is an iOS. So what is embedded computer? It is the device is only made for a specific purposes, for a specific purpose. So like an iPod, it only used for listen to music, for about music, listen to music, and yeah, basically it's just that. Or example, like a camera, it only used for taking pictures or recording videos, but it cannot be used for like texting or chatting, calling, and etc. So it has specific purpose for its device, that is embedded computer. The second classification is PC, personal computer. The hardware is laptop, for example, just laptop, and the software is Windows Explorer, or right now it has been upgraded to Windows 10. The third classification is workstation. Workstation is like a computer, but has a higher performance than just a computer. That is workstation. And the example for the OS is like Ubuntu. Now we arrive at the server. The server is the fourth classification by its functions, by computer functions. Server, the hardware is called also the server, and the software or the operating system example is Mac OS server. So the server is like a complex or bigger and stronger scale of computer. It is actually a computer, but just more complex, bigger, and stronger. It can be used like for 24/7, like can be used for every day, for long term. So it is stronger and big scale of computer, but the function is also like a computer, like a PC. Filing, it can do filing, emailing, web applications, and also monitoring, but monitoring for some computers or devices, and also have same parts as computer but just more complex. So the server has two types. The first one is public server, the second one is private server. The public server usually used for general Yeah, general people. Yeah, only for public. But the private one is usually used by a corporate, because the corporate need to monitor the devices in its company like more privately. Those are three shapes of server. The first one is tower. The tower is just like stand tall. It is tall like a tower. And the second shape is rack server. It's like a rack. You can put the server in order as you want. And the third one is blade shape server. Blade shape is also like a rack. You can put the server in order, but just more compact. And the blade one is heaviest and more expensive because it is compact. When we are talking about the shapes, before that, you have to know that the shapes of the server, like the tower, rack, and blade, it's not a small one or just like a simple computer that we know. The server is big, like your wardrobe, like our wardrobe. It is big as that. So that we have to consider about the room where we are going to put the server on. Those are four types of server rooms. The first one is home office. The home office is like you can only use one server, and then you put your server like on your desk along with your computer, CPU, and other hardware stuffs on the desk. Simple as that. And it can control like the devices in your home office. So it usually used by a small company that use a house to be its office. Simple as that. But when it comes to some servers, a lot more server than just one, you have to maybe consider to use the office wiring closet. That is the second types of server room. Office wiring closet. It is like a closet, a small room used for the server, not a big space, just a small space like small room that used for you to put the servers in it, along with the supporting hardware that the servers needs. When you are using the office wiring closet, you have to consider about the room temperature, because the server and all the hardware systems is going to produce heat, and it will change the room temperature to hot, even hotter. That is why you have to consider about the cooling system. The cooling system is to cool down or naturalize the room temperature so that the server can work properly, won't be heat. The third types of server rooms is single tenant data center. Single tenant data center is like you have a space, like a wide space, and that is your own space, your personal and own space. You have it so that you can modify, you can renovate, and you can make the space as you want before you put the server in. So the space will adjust the server that you are going to use. But the different for the multi-tenant data center, the fourth types of server room, multi-tenant data center, is the space is not yours. You just rent it, so you cannot modify the room as you want. You can only adjust the server to fit the room, not the room fit the server. That's just the difference with the single and the multi-tenant. The single, the room is yours, the space is yours, so you can use it like anything as you want. But the multi-tenant, you have to consider it is not your room, you just rent it, so you have to adjust the server with the room. We have already talked about the server rooms and server shapes, but not just that. If you want to purchase a server or provide or buy a server, Not just only the room and the shapes that you have to consider. Those are 4 factors that you have to consider before buying a server. The first one is the physical size. Yeah, the room of the room and the space that you are going to use for the server, and also the server's shapes. You have to consider how big is the room, how big the room is, and also which shapes of server that you are going to use. That is the physical size factor. The second factor is type power input. It is the power that the server you are going to use that the servers need. You have to consider how many powers you have to provide so the server can work properly. If you are going to use the tower or rack server, you can use like 120 volts. It only needs that. But if you are going to use the blade server, then you have to consider, you have to provide the 240 volts for the blade server. So that is the second factor. And the third factor is expansion versus density. It is about the supporting hardware that your server is going to need, because when you are going to buy a server, it's not just it. You have to also consider the cable, the wire, and all the supporting hardware for the server. Also, not just that, you have to also consider, are you going to purchase more server in the future? That is about the expansion and versus density. And the last factors, the fourth factors, is freestanding versus fixed mounted. It is about how flexible you want your server is. Are you going to choose the freestanding one? That means the server, you can move it like more flexible to move it. You can move it freely anywhere you want it to be. Or you just going to choose the fixed mounted. That means the server is only stand still right there. You cannot move it anywhere. You can actually move it, but it is just not as flexible as the freestanding. So that's all about the server. Thank you. Good evening.